archetype that doesn't have too many changes from previously, so I'm sure it's going to be one that he knows in and out.
Absolutely. Andrews here don't have, not quite the same list of accomplishments, but doing quite well in League Cups. And frankly, I've now discovered a League Cup that it is my life's goal to go and win, because it very literally has my name on it. The one big change we see for these Eternatus decks is, of course, they are playing weak discard energy, which is vital when Urshifu's running around, although maybe not too relevant in this game. So with all that said, let's head on over to the game and take a look which of these Eternatus are going to be victorious. The deck lists are pretty similar. They're not the exact same 60, but there are a lot of similarities, including 4 Crushing Hammers in each deck.
Oh boy, Crushing Hammers will be pretty important in this series, I gotta say. Because all of these decks only attach 1 per turn. Sometimes Power Accelerator can get you 1 attachment ahead, but outside of that, it's just don't miss your energy drops and try and hit heads with Crushing Hammers. That's going to be the in and out that both players have to go for this game.
I mean, it's pretty good advice as far as it goes, and, totally shows why we showed you that Crushing Hammer video earlier. By now, hopefully, you are all experts. So, Matias here does start with an Eternatus. It's a good starter. We've got that attack which accelerates an energy from your hand. Obviously can't use it now, but nice in the future. And there is a quick ball here, so could grab a Crobat to draw some cards, a second Eternatus, a backup attacker. Could even start pinging with Galarian Zigzagoon if he wanted to. So a lot of options there. Actually already has a Crobat, so probably not going to grab one of those.
Yeah, just also checking what counts are available. Always important to look through your deck. Energy drops are going to be important for you. Looks like there's one of those prized, 1 Crushing Hammer prized. I feel like you either go for backup Eternatus V here, or you go ahead and grab Yveltal, just for that option to pivot in and out of your Pokemon. Looks like we are going to see the backup Eternatus V. Never a bad shout. You can use a communication to dance for an additional card if you want to, but we are just going to see the 3 cards, and that's worked out pretty nicely for him. You can do the attachment this turn. Next turn, you're holding Com for the VMAX, and you can Crobat. Ooh, actually thinking about benching this extra V. I really like holding on to it, because you're pretty much guaranteeing a perfect turn 2, but instead he's just going to fill his board 1 more Pokemon.
Absolutely. I mean, does have the Professor's Research in hand, so probably thinking along those kind of lines, but I agree with you there, Joe. I like being able to communication for the VMAX and play Crobat and play Research. We do see an energy get removed to a Crushing Hammer. That is huge, because it basically forces Matias here to just use a Power Accelerator next turn, rather than actually going ahead with the big VMAX attack. So really setting Matias back a whole turn of attachment there, which it's the whole reason you play Crushing Hammers.
And there's still a communication coming in, so even more dig potential if you want to go for Crobat, or if your hand is strong enough, you could grab a second Eternatus V and just Power Accelerator. I think that's the last thing on the list for Andre here. If you can get a Power Accelerator and safeguard yourself against Matias's Crushing Hammers, that's going to put you miles ahead.
Yeah, it's always nice. When you can get energy on 2 Eternatus, it means your opponent has to hit double heads on Crushing Hammer in order to stop you getting those big attacks of Eternatus VMAX, which is possible, but it's highly unlikely. So, I mean, we've got a free retreating Yveltal, so can we have an energy? Can we have an Eternatus? We're probably seeing a Crobat come out here, because Crobat's going to draw you a bunch of cards and really get you towards all those things that you need.
Let's have a look then. Is it going to be the Dream turn 1? Even poking for 30 isn't too bad when your opponent hasn't got any energies on the field, but looks like not the Dream, so Crushing Hammers could swing Matias back into good shape, who's probably taking a turn himself trying to Power Accelerator. Again, both of them have to play around Crushing Hammers the entire game, so I imagine we'll be seeing the VMAX onto a benched Eternatus here, and then just a Research.
Unfortunately, there is no point having an Eternatus VMAX with only a single energy on. Only hits 1 energy, unfortunately. Does, I believe, have an access to a Crobat there with the quick ball and the communication. So I think it's going to have to be Crobat to look for that second energy. And if you can hit a Crushing Hammer as well, that would be nice.
Yeah, it's so weird that the only thing that's important in this matchup is exactly energy drops. Those are literally the only things that matter, because Eternatus VMAX does so much damage with Dread End that it's ridiculous swings. It's the difference between possibly 270 damage and 0. So Crushing Hammers are really big in the format for this matchup in particular, it feels like. It's really good against ADP, but also really good against Eternatus, which can just completely miss on turns. Looks like we are going to see the com for Zigzagoon here. And you can then simply quick ball after the fact and grab your Crobat. And you'll still attach to the active, I imagine, this turn. It's actually kind of risky, because if you attach to the active and don't get the Power Accelerator, you feel really bad. So it's a bit of a hedge here. Maybe you just Crobat for the 4 cards and see what you can do with it.
I don't think you attach. Attaching's too risky, because if you draw another energy, you really want a Power Accelerator, but if you don't, you really want to get it onto your bench Eternatus VMAX, not the active. Because if you attach to the active and your opponent just goes Energy VMAX KO, then that is as good as having lost another Crushing Hammer, well, another Energy 2 Crushing Hammer. So I don't think you play the Energy before Crobat here, or maybe you do. Oh, I quite like this play. That's a nice one.
This goes to the V. It opens the door for you to find switch energy to still Power Accelerator, and it means if your opponent's going to hunt down boss's orders, you're not giving up 3 prize Pokemon. Looks like there are no energy here at all, so a decent hedge from Matias here to sort of protect himself on multiple fronts.
Yeah, that's not bad. It can still be punished by Andres here, but now we do see the VMAX, but we're going to need an energy and a boss's orders and a couple more Pokemon on the bench. It is absolutely possible, don't get me wrong, but I think Matias has done as well as he can there to just go, yeah, I think I'm safe. Here's Crushing Hammer. Oh, okay, that's not bad.
Everyone holds their breath when there's Crushing Hammer, especially in this matchup, because it's such a big deal. It can buy yourself back a free turn. Andre does find himself the VMAX at last now, so he can go ahead and Marnie. Actually, the Pokemon on the bench is already a VMAX.
Yeah.
It's all these gold Pokemon that make it difficult to see here. But the Marnie's going to reduce both players' hand size a little bit here. Still looking for energy drop, it looks like. There's the energy drop at last.
And that is going to be enough to get a KO. 210, Wisdom 20 from the Galarian Zigzagoon is enough. And, I mean, the good news for Matias is we do have an Eternatus VMAX and an Energy, so there is going to be an attack here. And actually, the first attack into a VMAX. The bad news is absolutely nothing else.
Yeah, he's just going to go ahead and swing. The good news is you're going into the 3 prizer first. So this way round, you're basically saying, I don't need boss's orders for the remainder of the game. I'm going to try and 2-shot this VMAX and then 2-shot the next one. And it's down to Andre to try and weave around this 3 prize Pokemon. Here comes another Crushing. Does get the heads.
Oh.
Now that you get Crushing Hammer heads, you can try and hit back into this VMAX again and say that even if I'm not taking the easiest prize route, you're still committing, or Matias is still committing to the active. Okay, we're going to see it in combination with boss's orders, actually. So this keeps the win condition open for next turn. He can just be another boss's orders away with another VMAX and an energy drop. But it also means that Matias still has to recommit to the VMAX.
Yeah, I don't mind this at all. This is, it's an awkward one. You're really kind of pushing your cards to the middle of the table here and going, right, let's see what we can do. Because actually, Andres, if he needs to really have the boss's orders next turn. Oh, I love that heads. That is huge. Because it is going to be combined with a KO here. So there's going to be no energy on the board, which, oh, Matias might be making a really nice comeback. And here it's just 2 turns. Matias hits into the VMAX twice. That is the game. Or even just attacks 2 other Pokemon. Doesn't even need to go after the VMAX at this stage. Whereas Andres here really needs to, I don't know, I mean, get an Eternatus V and attack, but then that's in range of a VMAX. You don't want to use an Eternatus V when your opponent has a VMAX. That's not good.
Yeah, so he probably takes the turn off. He probably just forfeits the Yveltal this turn, tries to attach to the bench Eternatus, and then next turn tries to make that VMAX and try and 2-hit KO and be the first one hitting into the 3 prizer, or try and piece together boss's orders. But he's actually going to discard a boss's orders to go Crobatting here for some cards. So looks like, once again, missing on energy drops, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, the problem is, if you give up the Yveltal, then Matias goes down to 2 prizes, and you just lose to a boss's orders at some point. I think there's like a 2-turn window. Oh, here comes boss's orders. I like this play, forcing Matias to have a switch. has Crobat and Professor's Research, so there's gonna be some cards coming down.
Yeah, this is a really good hand to get stamped into. You can go ahead and grab another VMAX if you want to thin. You probably don't take this because you can't put it anywhere. You just want to Crobat for the additional one instead. You Crobat first, then you research, unless you can find the perfect cards off of this, which is Switch and Boss's Orders. Let's see the 4 cards. None of those. So he can go fishing again with the research, but no win on board this turn. The good news is you can attach energy and play around Crushing Hammer at this stage, so you're not going to get wrecked in that regard.
No, this is all right. I mean, you don't need to win this turn. It's still going to be a little while. The thing is, Andres could actually have game next turn with the right combination of cards, to be fair. VMAX, energy, few bench Pokemon, Boss's Orders. It's asking a lot, but it's there.
Yeah, and he actually quick-walled away a Boss's Orders the previous turn, so it's certainly there. Ooh, Crushing Hammer Tails.
That would have
once again,
huge.
Could have been huge. Could have made Matias safe for another turn. No switch outs as it stands, so no prize for Matias. So he's still 2 turns away at best. So Andre has a couple options now. Can get that second energy drop onto Eternatus. Is there anything else going on in his hand here? Just a research. Even if he just makes a VMAX and hits, that's still a fantastic turn for him.
Yeah, you've got to think he's just become the favourite in this game. There was Ares, the VMAX. Matias had a really good shout to be in a good position there had he taken a KO on the Evil Tower. But then again, that's why we saw the Eternatus be dragged up into the active. There's a reason Andres did that, because you know what? That was the play. Here we see Dread End. As Matias here, we're going to need to see a switch, an attack, and a cross of fingers.
Yeah, just hoping that Marnie's good enough for you, really. There's actually no switch remaining in his deck, so he has to attack with this VMAX. So can he actually win here? I don't know if there's any win condition for him.
If he doesn't have any switching cards, I don't think he can win this game because...
Oh, there is one switch. My bad. There is one.
Oh, there we go.
So he can dig
that
for
switch.
It.
Yeah. Without a switch, I think you've got to concede the game because there is no way you're getting out the active and you're going to definitely be KO'd next turn. As it is, a slim margin of hope, and it, like you say, it's drop a Marnie, hope your opponent whiffs the Boss's Orders, and to be fair, if you can switch, attack, and your opponent doesn't hit Boss's Orders, then all of a sudden you're in a pretty good position in the game. If you can't, I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, so here is the Crobat for 4. He's got the 4, then the Marnie, so the guaranteed switch. He can go ahead and play Crushing. It does get heads, so now you're hoping that the Marnie gets Andre out of Energy Boss. And we're going to see some additional cards here.
There's the switch. Okay, that's nice. And...
yeah, sorry, you can also Power Pad for 2 Boss.
Yeah.
Just to give yourself really good odds to close next game.
Yeah.
Next turn, yep.
And, I mean, it's interesting, of course, because Matias now has 2 built-up Eternatus, so Hammers are basically taken out of it. Although, having said that, he has no switch. So Hammer on the active would still be huge. I mean, it's down to Andres, does he have a boss? Because if he's got a boss on an energy, all of this discussion is irrelevant.
Yeah, he's already got enough Pokemon in play to knock out a Crobat. It's just whether or not he can access it. We start off with a switch. It could be just so that you can Crobat for some additional cards here. There's an energy to the Eternatus. Just a research here. Matias doesn't have game in hand. He needs to top deck a boss. 3 cards out of 7 are Boss's Orders, though. Doesn't hit it. So now has to just hit into the active and Marnie again and really hope that there's still no Boss's Orders from Andres.
This is a turn where you draw all 3 Boss's Orders off of Marnie and it drives you a little bit crazy. Oh, hit 2 out of 3.
What was the last card in deck? Yeah. All right, you just swing. That's all you can do.
It's not a bad position. I mean, the thing this does open up is for Andres to potentially get a fresh Eternatus VMAX in the active to force that Boss's Orders, which is obviously kind of the game plan, but it really is just down to Boss. If Andres has Boss, he wins. If he doesn't, and Matias has Boss, which he currently does, he wins. We saw a very confident pushing the Eternatus up. We see the VMAX coming down. Is there a Boss's Orders? No! And that means Matias is going to take game 1.
What a swingy series. There's so many intricacies here. There's Crushing Hammer as a pitfall every single turn in the game. And there's just huge damage coming into these Eternatus that just have so many ridiculous hit points that they can tank huge hits. And both players ending up with boards that had heavily damaged VMAXs all over the place. And it was just dodging that boss.
We said Boss's Orders was going to be important throughout this tournament, and it absolutely is. It's another one of those games that comes down to it. And you're right, the margins, this is a proper mirror match. The counts are off 1 or 2 cards here or there, but it is a mirror match. The only real question is, am I going to go after VMAXs and 2-hit KO, or am I going to 1-hit KO Pokemon Vs with Boss's Orders? And the reality is, it is probably going to be some combination of the two. It is missing energy drops, it is hitting Crushing Hammers, it is getting Boss's Orders at the right time. And that game swung back and forth. Either player could have won that game fairly easily had 1 or 2 draws gone their way.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest question marks was there was a turn where Andres hit a heads on a hammer to then be able to hit the VMAX 2 times if he wanted to. Instead, on that turn, hit the heads and still went for a Crobat. If you then hit into the active and force an extra resource from Matias, it means that you don't need to go boss fishing later down the line. So it would have been an attack that I would have preferred to see. And in the end, it was, you know, Andres who was falling short of the win there. So it's really, really close in these games, and Crushing Hammers are going to be a huge factor as we move into our game 2 here. So let's see how Andres is going to react in the second game.
No, absolutely. It's going to be an interesting one. Let's head on over to game 2 then. Here we go. And, I mean, this is, you know, Matias is probably going to have to go second here. This is a matchup where you really want to go first.
Well, there is still Power Accelerator. So Andre could be saying, I want to be able to Power Excel and play around Crushing Hammer. So there's nuances on both sides here. You get the free energy attachment if you go first, and you can be the first one to VMAX. But when there's Crushings in the equation, you got to try and protect yourself with the Power Accelerator and give yourself extra draw options.
Yeah, you're right. It is not as easy as I just made it out to be.
Especially with this hand.
Oh my goodness, there's no Eternatus. And right now, Crobat doesn't draw any cards. Like, you can bench Crobat, but you don't get to draw any cards. And it's not just that you don't draw cards now, it's that Crobat isn't in your deck to draw cards later. What you really want is 4 turns of drawing with Crobat. So this is just going to be, if you bench a Crobat, and you kind of have to, probably.
Yeah, I think I attach Weak Guard to it, probably. Because you can finish off a VMAX with a 2-prizer and try and skew the race that way. I think it's terrible, but I think it's worthwhile.
It's a way to put it, but you're right. It's not a good play, but maybe it's the best you've got. There is no Eternatus.
Wow. He's going to try and dig for 1. Oh, I do not like this.
No.
Oh, it's not broken. And attaches to the Evil Tail, actually. Also interesting. Yeah.
It's such an awkward play. It's such an awkward play. And that's one of those situations, like, we look at it now, we're like, why would you play 2 Crobat in that situation? But if Matias hits Eternatus off that second Crobat, we go, oh, that was a gutsy play, but it really paid off in the end, because he got the end. It's so awkward when it comes down to it. Has got the money for next turn, but I mean, the good news is Matias is up by a game, because frankly, this start is not going to impress him. And this is going to come back to bite him later in the game when those Crobat are not available to use.
Yeah, especially when Marnie only gets you 5 cards and you need a lot after it. So, yeah, and also the attachment of Dark Energy. You know, energies are super vital in this matchup. We've seen how fine the margins are with Crushing Hammer heads. I think attaching to the Crobat has to be the strongest choice there. But regardless, the 1 card, he basically had 12 outs, right? He had the 4 Eternatus, the 4 Quick Balls, and the 4 Great Balls, which are like half outs, and I guess Communication are outs as well, so 14 outs. Just drawing 1 card. It's a good amount of outs, but didn't get there, unfortunately, whereas we see a slightly better start here. Eternatus V getting an energy drop, then the Crobat for 3 here. Much more solid on the opponent's side.
And we talked about going first versus going second. If Matias had gone second, it would have been a fairly easy, you know what, this is not going my way. I'm just going to Marnie and hope I can hit a Crobat off that and go from there. It would have been a very, very different turn. Going first turned out really bad there.
And now we get to see the benefit of going second. You get to research this hand away, look to try and find switch outs for a backup Eternatus. If you can get double energy drop in play, it's going to really help you to really push the tempo on Matias next turn.
I mean, yeah, if you can have two Eternatus with an energy on and your opponent has no Eternatus and an energy on an Evil Tal, it's such a huge swing in the game. Doesn't get it, though. Has to leave the Hooper in the active. So, would you believe it? The next
One card away.
One card away. Oh,
well, it does make his turn much better. It means he can attach now to this Eternatus, and you can play that Marnie. Ooh, looks like eyeing up Boss's Orders instead. No, I feel like you have to attach Weakness Guard to the Eterna and then just Marnie it on down, right? Your opponent's hand size is pretty intimidating. Wow, okay. Could be a derail, actually. So Evil Tal's going to derail this Weak Guard energy.
I quite like it.
Yeah, it's a Crushing Hammer Heads, right? It's just really good.
Yeah. And you start to poke away. Now, you're not there yet. You're still a little way away from the KO, but, you know, another one of those and a Zigzagoon, and actually that is in range of an Eternatus, so you don't need to do much to bring it down into range. You need 70 damage, right? So you've done 30. This could be a situation where Matias can kind of cheekily get a KO on a VMAX in a couple of turns' time without having to get the traditional two-hit KO route.
We are going to see the re-establishment of now basic Darkness Energy, so we could be seeing a response Power Accelerator here to try and have the double V powered up, or at least ready to go with one attachment.
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. That you know, that's working quite well. I'm just thinking from Matias' standpoint, do you try and use Evil Tal again anyway, just because?
Certainly, it could be an option. You can weave it in, right? You can make that VMAX, find a switch, and just go into Evil Tal anyway. It's a free retreat pivot for you. We even see the Quick Ball off the top, so that could become a Crobat for a deeper dive into the deck here.
I think it's got to.
This is looking pretty nice now. You can see totting up the Zigzagoon, seeing how far away he is from being able to deal with this Eternatus, even if it does become a VMAX eventually.
10 away as it stands. Unless he's got Scoop Up Net on board, he's 10 away. He can do 3. There's already 3 on there. With the 270 that Eternatus maxes out as, that's 330. And Eternatus has the joint highest HP of any Pokemon proper normal regular Pokemon with 340, so you are going to be 10 away, and this is one of those newer style lists that have dropped those Scoop Up nets, so if you want to get a cheeky KO, you've got to hit with Derail first.
Yeah, and looks like Matias could be looking for, well, you know, he can get a big KO here. If he gets enough bench Pokemon and just attaches to the VMAX, he could knock off the only energy in play. No switch outs for him, but he can go attach, research, and dig. Try and find one of the 3 switch outs remaining in his deck here. Or you can just Marnie. There's a lot of bosses that you don't want to get rid of here, so taking the more conservative approach. Let's find switch and 2 Pokemon!
That's enough.
Wow.
That is enough. That will do 210, which is absolutely what you're looking for. Yeah, this is nice. And I like the
Marnie. Yeah, what an insane Marnie that was. You had much lower odds than ripping the research, but you keep all those bosses and the Pal Pad for future turns, and now you're miles ahead. Stripping another energy off the board. Oh, this is so good.
This is so good, and Matias is looking for a 2-0 victory here. The last game was very back and forth, but Matias is really going for the advantage here. And this is what you're looking for in this kind of mirror match. Matias has 2 energy on an Eternatus. Andres has no energy on any Eternatus. It is a very different board state. Matias is going to run out of Crobats quite soon, which could be a pain in the late game. But as it stands at the moment, I am not minding this at all. Matias is in a great position and saved the boss's orders, which is huge.
And he's going to get Marnied into a fresh hand here. He could be looking down win in 2 turns if he can boss, but we know a lot of them are in the bottom of the deck right now. And we can see Andre here. He is going to re-establish another Eternatus. He's really just trying to dodge a boss for another turn here, unless he can develop a VMAX, because otherwise he's going to be in really bad shape. Okay, there we do see the VMAX. All these max rarity players making it hard for us to comment. Can we see any Crobat dig going on here at all? No, just the pass.
Oh, I've been tripped up by those gold items a couple of times already. They're beautiful, but they're not the easiest when you're watching.
They're beautiful, but what are they?
Oh, he needs a ball search. Yeah, he's got quick ball. So great ball comes down here. It can get an Eternatus, and I mean, there's only one Crobat. I was already an Eternatus, but here you can quick ball to grab yourself a Crobat. And that's the last Crobat, so bench space becomes a lot less important now. Generally speaking, you want to hit as much as you can while leaving a bench space for a Crobat. But when all the Crobats are on the board, it's really not an issue anymore. You don't mind filling your bench at that stage. So does look like we're going to get a KO. Now, there is a boss's orders in hand. So the question is, how lucky do you feel? Because
I chase the VMAX here every time, I think. Yeah. When you don't have the next boss, you're essentially always targeting energy. You're so far ahead on energy attachments, you just want to keep hunting those, I think. Ooh, thinking about the race. The race is so tempting.
It is. It's very tempting.
Oh, I want to chase energy. Oh, man. Okay.
Yeah. I agree, because here it's an awkward situation, because if Matias gets boss's orders, that's it. It's game. If Matias doesn't get boss's orders, then you're behind in the VMAXs smashing into each other race. And all it takes is, a crushing hammer heads.
Oh, wow. He's going to get bailed by the Marnie. The Marnie could be pushing him closer. That's so crazy. Matias kind of did... He did this sort of call my bluff play where he said, I'm bossing this, which tells you I have boss in hand, so Marnie me. And then he did. Oh, that's a Marnie off the top. Not quite the boss's orders to close out the game here. Matias is still ahead in the sort of bumper car Eternatus here, where they just sort of hit each other a couple times. So if you just attack this VMAX this turn, you can Palpad back in boss's orders, 2 of them in fact, and you can go ahead and reset your hand. You're still miles ahead here because the only way you can take a response KO as Andre is using that VMAX, and that's not an option for you.
No, double boss all the way. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, it has Crushing Hammer that you can fling out as well, just to play around.
Oh, it's a head.
Stamp at this point. Heads is always pretty nice. You get that hit. And yeah, Andre is just so far behind, energy-wise, board position-wise, and prize-wise. He's just flown a little bit too far behind here. Needs a lot of combo pieces. Needs stamp, needs hammers, and needs a bit more time here.
Yeah, everything you just listed there was a pretty bad combination, Joe, if I'm honest with you. That was not ideal. It really does look like, yeah, and Andres there is basically just giving up the game and going, right, well, you know what? This is not going my way, so I'm going to attack into you, but actually don't even need boss's orders in the end. Matias is just too far ahead in the game and takes the 2-0 victory in, well, a proper mirror match.
Yeah, that was really nice. And that second game, I'm really thankful to say that Crushing Hammer wasn't the be-all and end-all. We saw Yveltal stripped off an energy, then boss's orders for a KO, that old-fashioned way to take energies off the board.